Good morning, guys. Aren't you glad that we're finally done freezing for now? I mean, we're about a month away from the official end of winter, so I think we can safely say that the super cold weather is done for now, and we really won't have to worry about it again until the end of the year. Now we're going to have a couple of months of pretty decent and nice weather until it gets super hot again. Yay, heat. I hope you all stayed nice and comfortable during all this coldness, that you didn't lose your electricity or your water. Our electricity stayed on, thankfully, but our water pipes froze up, so we didn't have any water in the house for the last few days. And it kind of stunk. The water just started working earlier today, but for the whole week we ended up having to buy some water jugs so we could wash our hands and have something to drink and all that. And it made me really miss being able to just go to the sink and get water. It also helped me realize just how good we have it, that there are so many people in the world that live just about every day without running water or electricity. The things that we just accept will be a part of our lives just about every day. I mean, I got kind of cranky about not having water for 5 days, but there are people who never have it and they live perfectly happy lives. I guess I just need to realize just how lucky it is that I have water most times that I want it. Let's do our opening together. Repeat after me if you'd like, or just do the hand symbols with me. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are the church of the open mind, the loving heart, and the helping hands. Together, we care for our earth and work for friendship and peace in our world. Let's begin. Today, I want to talk to you guys about something that you may have heard about before: climate change. Don't worry, I'm not going to give a huge science lesson, mostly because I'm not a scientist. But I have paid attention to what the scientists have said about it, and after the really cold weather that we just had, I felt that this was a good time to have this talk. Do you guys know what it means when someone says climate change? Do you know what the word climate itself means? Most people think climate just means what the weather is like, but that's not quite it. When people talk about the weather, they just mean if it's hot or cold or raining or snowing or whatever outside right now or yesterday or tomorrow. Climate means what the weather is like over a long period of time, like 30 years. That's what climate is. Think of it this way. The desert is a hot, dry climate, right? If you look at the weather in the desert for like an entire year, you'll see that it's mostly hot and dry, right? And it doesn't really rain very much. That's climate. But let's say you go to the desert one day and it's not very hot and it rains a lot. Does that mean that the climate of the desert is different, that it's not hot and dry anymore? No. The weather that one day was different, but most days are still hot and dry. Heck, even if it was that way for a few weeks or months, that would still just be a change in the weather, not the climate. I mean, we had like a week of super cold weather here in Lubbock. Does that mean that our climate changed from warm and dry to cold and frozen? No, we just had a week like that, but that's not how our weather usually is. Make sense? Now, if it started raining a lot more and the temperature in the desert went way down for like 20 or 30 years in a row, then we could say that the climate in the desert has changed from being hot and dry to cool and wet. So when people talk about climate change, they're talking about the climate changing, not what the weather is like on different days. So how does the climate change? Well, when we do stuff like drive cars, fly planes, blow smoke out of factories, or have large cow farms, we release stuff like carbon dioxide and methane into the air, which are called greenhouse gases. Do you know what a greenhouse is? I don't know if you've ever been in one, but it's a small little building where they grow plants. And it's built to trap in heat and moisture and to help the plants grow. The gases are called greenhouse gases because they do the same thing to the earth. They float up into the air and keep heat from escaping into space, therefore making the earth warmer. And I'll bet you're thinking, so what's the big deal? So what if the earth gets a bit warmer? Well, A lot of stuff on the Earth evolved to deal with a certain level of heat, and they can adapt to the heat rising. The heat on the Earth will rise and fall on its own, but that usually takes a really long time to happen. However, with the greenhouse gases, we're raising the temperature a lot faster than the Earth can keep up, and it's causing all sorts of problems. You know all about the icebergs and glaciers, right? You know what those are? Those huge big old chunks of floating ice out in the sea? Well, climate change is causing those things to melt and break apart, which is making the earth and the ocean warmer. I mean, if you have a glass of water with some ice in it, the more the ice melts, the warmer your glass of water gets, right? It's the same thing with the oceans, and the warmer oceans make the air around them warmer. It gets a bit complicated, but long story short, this change in the temperature of the oceans and the air is causing all sorts of problem with weather. Some places are getting a lot more rain than they're supposed to. Some places are getting a lot less. Some places are getting a lot colder than they're supposed to, and other places have gotten a lot hotter, that kind of stuff, and it's really messing things up. The winter storm that we just had was a result of that. That kind of winter storm usually stays further up north, but the changing weather patterns let it come a lot further south and let it hit us, which we're a lot further south than where it usually goes. Those wildfires that we've been having here in America, it's because there's a lot of areas that are a lot hotter and drier than they're supposed to be. Places with a lot of trees that can catch on fire and burn, so it's easier for fires to start and then get out of control. And since the weather has changed in these areas for a long period of time now, and not just for a few days or a few weeks, we can say that the climate in these areas is changing. What can we do about it? Well, one thing that's helping is that more and more people are like driving electric cars instead of gas-powered cars, because electric cars don't shoot carbon dioxide in the air. And in fact, a lot of the car makers, car manufacturers, are going to stop making gas-powered cars and only make cars that run on like electricity and other forms of uh, going power, for lack of a better term. We're also trying to replace old power plants that use coal and natural gas to produce electricity, and they also produce a lot of greenhouse gases, with what's known as green energy, like windmills and solar panels, things that can produce electricity without creating greenhouse gases. Groups are trying to get more and more trees planted because plants, like trees, can help to remove greenhouse gases from the air and replace it with oxygen. The government is trying to get companies to stop polluting so much greenhouse gas, because their factories pump out a bunch of smoke, and like I said, that smoke creates greenhouse gas, and so we're trying to find ways to do business without creating so much pollution. It will take a lot of work and a lot of time, but if we can get enough people to work hard enough, especially big companies, we can get our planet back to a healthy place, back to where it really should be. If we don't, unfortunately, things will probably end up getting a lot worse. Well, that's all I have for you today, guys. I know today's video was a bit longer than normal, but this is a very important topic. I did the best I could to explain what climate change is, but like I said, I'm not a scientist. I encourage you to do some more research on it, like what causes it and what we can do to fight it. This is probably the most important thing that the world will be working on for at least the next 20 or 30 years. So the more you know, the better. There are people out there who will try and tell you that all this is made up, but those people just haven't been properly educated on the topic. So don't let them distract you from doing your part to try and help stop the bad effects of climate change, okay? Anyway, take care, you guys. Make healthy choices, stay safe, and I'll talk to you again next week. Later.